Hey, Steve Gamache here with another behind the scenes video. This is episode number 2, measuring and weighing and statistic gathering on the knives. So what I do is print up some pre-configured sheets I worked up where I've got got 5 per sheet, and I can put on what round I have, what page it is, and the knife information for each knife. So I've got the knife model, the weight, edge length, overall length, spine, thickness, the height of the blade at the heel, handle circumference on the wah handles, and out of the box edge, what I kind of think it is on a scale from 1 to 10, and any kind of notes I want to make about the knife. And I use these to generate the sheets, plus the heat treat and the steel and the handle material and stuff that I print out that you see on the Quick Look videos. So I've widened out my camera here a little bit, and these are pieces of tape I use to mark where I put my printed sheets that you see the statistics on that I point to in the videos. So again, I've widened the view out a little bit. So one of the things I'll do on all the knives is definitely take digital scale measurements. So got a basic digital scale, which is, I've done some calibration tests on it. It's pretty accurate, but I'll basically just find the balance point of the knife and stick it on there, and then figure out grams, and then I can switch that from grams to ounces. So 117 grams, 4.1 ounces for this particular Kohetsu Awa Hep 40 Bunka 175 millimeter knife. And so I weigh them all. And most of the knives I'll also take individual measurements, especially all the hand-hammered styles. Some of the ones that are real machine done, like the artifacts, or some of them, the statistics that Mark has on the site are, going to be basically the same for every knife. So some of those I'll just use the on-site ones, but most of the knives I'll hand do all the measurements. So among the measurements I'll take, I've got a ruler here. I use my sheet of paper to back the edge so I don't mess up the edge. But what I do to measure the edge length on a knife is I will roll it from the heel right on the edge of the end of the ruler, and I'm angling this a little so you can see it, but I will just roll it along to where the tip hits. And so that's, if you're wondering how do I measure that length, so I don't go straight from across with that. I'll figure what the actual edge length is, rolling it on a cutting board, or in this case this. And so when I'm coming out on this particular one, it's about 182 coming out with that, so let's write that down. And then I'll also measure the entire length of the knife. Come up with that. In this case, it's about 317. And then we also measure the spine. So I've got a digital calipers here. And I'll typically, let me reset that. So I'll typically measure right above the heel, or the chin of the back of the blade, approximately there. Sometimes I'll move around a little bit and figure out where the measurement is, but I'll figure out what that measurement is. In this case, about 2.3 millimeters. Sometimes I'll also take measurements halfway down and then towards the blade just to get an idea of some of the digital taper. But in this case, I'm measuring right there, about 2.3. Then I also take height measurements. I usually, unless it's a really tall knife, I usually use this one as well. And so I'll just bring it there about even. Try to make it about 90 degrees or so perpendicular. And we'll just figure out right to the base there what that measurement is. And this one's about 46.8. Nikitis I measure in the middle as well, just to see kind of if there's some blade slope to the height. And then for the handle, on the wah handles, I'm not going to do it for purposes of this video, but I have a piece of string with a knot in it. I basically pull it off the edge of the table, put the string around, pull it tight, keep a pinch on that, then I lay it on the ruler and I figure out what the circumference is in millimeters and then translate that. It's a fairly accurate way to do it. I can almost feel about the size of the handles at this point. Like this one here, I can tell you is probably about 74, 75, 76. just from the feel of it, just from handling so many of them, but I'll measure it just to make sure. But I'm going to guess that's around 75 millimeters right here. Pretty standard size handle. And then I'll check the edge out of the box, feel it, do fingernail test, see if it's got some bite to it. And then I'll usually use paper towels, rolled up paper towels for an edge test as well. Maybe some paper, but I'll just get a rough edge on that, as far as, and I'll also look at the edge and just see how clean the bevel is, if it's pretty well ground, consistently ground, what the polish is on it, just to kind of get a ballpark. So I consider 5 out of 10 to be just kind of an average edge that I see on a lot of Japanese knives, which doesn't mean it's a great edge, it just means it's the average edge I typically see, and which means it's usually pretty sharp, reasonably well formed, sharp throughout, a little bit of tooth to it, and then we can go up or down from there. So this particular one, these are really sharp out of the box. They've thinned the edge a little bit on the right side. Towards the edge on the left side's pretty, just a standard small bevel. And I've actually sharpened this one, and it got really sharp. Took a little bit of work, but man, it got sharp right. It should hold it a long time. But so I'm going to give this one a good 6, maybe 7 out of 10. And then I can write any particular notes down that I want to on the knife. So that's what I do. I create all the statistics. You kind of, at least for me, I have to kind of eyeball these knives, take a really good look at them, especially if I've got multiple knives in the same series. I will take the knife and sight down it against some light to see how clean the grind is, if there's a lot of undulations there, high spots, low spots. In other words, overgrinds, undergrinds, how clean is the profile. I usually put it on not necessarily a cutting board, because that's not necessarily that completely flat, but I usually use my countertop or something like this, and I'll roll it on there to see if there's any hiccups in the edge, some dips or bumps. And especially if I see multiple knives in the same lineup, I can usually kind of tell what the consistency of the maker is, or if they have a lot of inconsistency. Either the knives are ground consistently well, or they have a few issues, or you usually get a feel after a few knives from the same maker in the same line. So sometimes that's where I derive my conclusions from when I talk about knife characteristics in the forums and such, or on the videos. I'll check the spine, see if it's got some relief or polished a little bit. Same with the choil back here into the neck. Again, just general characteristics. I will use a few of the knives. I tend to be pretty picky about which one to use, because Mark doesn't want me using a whole bunch of knives, and because he puts them on sale as video knives and closeouts. But I will use a few to get a feel for a line I'm particularly interested in, or just a comparison, and get a feel for what the knife does through product and on the board. So this one I've been using, and boy, this is a stellar knife. This baby rocks. I'll talk about it in the video, but this is, again, the Kohetsu Wa HAP 40 Bunka 175, and it is a bad little knife. It is really cool. This thing really makes me think line knife, if you're in the right environment where you're not going to bang it up too much, but this is a really cool little knife. So that's kind of the stuff I do behind the scenes. The videos sometimes take a little while for me to get acquainted with the knives, go back, look them over a little bit, check them out, just kind of get a bit of a feel for them. Again, I don't use that many of them, just a few, but got to get a feel for them and kind of ponder on them a little bit before I throw the video out there, get some comments from the board sometimes on them and stuff like that. So there's some behind the scenes, exciting as it is, I know, so exciting. So stay tuned for part 3, where I'm going to show you a little bit about my actual setup where I do the filming. So until then, this is Steve Gamache with the behind the scenes quick look, Chef Knives to Go quick look product video episode number 2.